Let's talk more about those rescue efforts underway in both Turkey and Syria. I'm joined here in the studio by Anne-Claire Legendre. She's the spokesperson for the French Foreign Ministry. Anne-Claire, good to have you with us in the studio this evening.
Good morning.
Good news then of those kind of miracle rescues, if you will. That the fact is, though, that this is an incredibly tragic situation. Just a drop in the ocean, some 43,000 people have died in this earthquake. France has been very solid in its support for the victims. Walk us through some of the efforts that France has carried out to date.
Let me first express my thoughts and condolences to the people of Syria and the people of Turkey. It's an absolute tragedy, and we've been mobilized since the very first minutes of this tragedy. We sent on the first day after the earthquake 2 teams of rescue staff on mission in Turkey in order to support the rescue and search efforts going on the ground. And we are continuing this support. We're also continuing in Syria. And the humanitarian access there is very limited and restricted. Absolutely. But we are working with the UN, with international NGOs that have access through at the border in order to help the Syrian population there.
Give us a concrete picture. How is this money being used? We understand 12 million euros is part of the funds that have been given to Syria and Turkey. How is it being spent concretely on the ground?
So concretely on the ground, we have these 2 rescue teams. We already sent also an emergency medical unit that is able to treat 100 patients a day in order to help support the medical effort ongoing and support those who have suffered injuries. And we are also sending relief support. And I can announce you that tomorrow France will send to Turkey 40 tons of relief support to Turkey, which includes tents, but also food support, but also energy and heat support for those who are now living in the rubbles of this tragedy.
And we understand even milk for children,
Absolutely.
ultimately, which is key, a staple there. Amid such chaos on the ground, rescue efforts, the search for survivors, people who have been displaced, how is it all being coordinated? Because you can imagine it's a massive effort to get this all coordinated.
It's a massive effort, and you know that the EU, the European Union, has been mobilizing, all the member states have been mobilizing. So among the member states, we have this mechanism that help us, mobilize and coordinate our efforts. But of course, we are in very close touch with the Turkish authorities, and we've been responding to their calls and responding to their specific demands. And I was mentioning this medical unit, and this is clearly a specific request by the Turkish authority because they are lacking medical resources because most of the hospitals have been stricken and are not able to function on the ground.
Spatial technologies is also a key part of the French initiative on the ground. Just walk us through how that's working and what's being done on that front.
So we're helping also with a special team from our crisis center in order to help the Turkish authority coordinate efforts on the ground because we have this expertise. And so we've been sending people who are actually specialized in this coordination mechanism in order to help and support the Turkish authorities on the ground.
I mean, as you said, France has been there, began sending aid very quickly after this tragedy. Reconstruction, I mean, the number of buildings that have been flattened, completely obliterated, is huge. Will France be part of the reconstruction efforts that will begin in Turkey and in Syria?
Yeah, of course we will. And you know that the UN already issued a flash appeal, which is more dedicated to emergency support and relief, because I think now, unfortunately, we are going out of the first phase, which was the search and rescue. And you mentioned the 3 last victims that we were able to be saved today. But unfortunately, the number of survivors NGOs is now very, very limited. And so now we're entering into relief, support in order to help and support the people which are actually survivors of the earthquake, but are in such dire conditions today that we need to help and support them. And then we will enter into the reconstruction phase, which will require a huge support and mobilization by the international community. And of course, France will be there with the EU in order to contribute to this effort.
Anne-Claire, you're the spokesperson for the French Foreign Ministry. I'd want to get a sense from you of another country that France is wanting to help, Ukraine. This is all coming against the backdrop of the Munich Security Conference today. Emmanuel Macron, speaking earlier, quite clear about the steps forward. We're almost 1 year on since this invasion of Ukraine. What are the next steps for France from here on in?
So now, I think, and what the President said very clearly today, is the priority is to help and reinforce our support to Ukraine. So that's what we've been doing. And you know that President Zelensky was in Paris just a few days ago. He was also in Brussels with all the European leaders. And we decided collectively to intensify our effort. So when it comes to military support, France has made a very significant new announce in terms of military support to Ukraine in order to help Ukraine, actually exert its legitimate defense of its own territory. So we announced new support in terms of artillery, in terms of air defense, which is really the priority today for the Ukrainians, because they are facing the strikes by Russia, which are resuming and actually targeting civilian infrastructures. But we are also seeing a new mobilization by the Russian forces, and so might be, the first sign of a new counter-offensive by Russia.
Well, you'll have seen once again President Zelensky launching that appeal for further equipment from European allies. Anne-Claire Legendre, you're the spokesperson for the French Foreign Ministry. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you so much.